Ladies and gentlemen, John Durham is now on the case regarding Trump's phone call, the phone call that Democrats won't let go of. This is very bizarre. They went from Trump worked with Russia to collude to buy Facebook ads and to interfere in the election by informing the country that Bernie Sanders was cheated and hacking the DNC, which is really horrible because you cannot work with a foreign country. Yet they purchased a Steele dossier, utilized a dossier compiled with a Russian intelligence official, allegedly, used the information and gossip and hearsay from Alexander Downer and Joseph Mifsud. Every piece of salacious, unverified, obviously absurd information, they said, well, we have to investigate further. It was never the Pinocchios from Washington Post, well, Trump says without evidence. It was never Democrats or Adam Schiff or James Clapper says without evidence. It's always, well, anything's possible. Even to this day, the Steele dossier is completely debunked. Completely and utterly just been eviscerated because it's a nonsensical, irrational fantasy. And still people are like, well, some of it could be true, and we have to continue. We have to continue looking into it. Now, Michael Mukasey, Durham's Ukrainian leads, what prosecutor has found could surprise Dems. This is a great, great article. And this is actually in the Wall Street Journal. It's a great, great piece by the former Attorney General. John Durham's Ukrainian leads, what the prosecutor has found may be quite different from what Democrats are looking for. And the definitive answer to the obvious question is, what's that about, is known only to Mr. Durham and his colleagues, but publicly available reports, including by Andrew McCarthy in his new book, Ball of Collusion, suggest that during the 2016 campaign, the Federal Bureau of Investigation tried to get evidence from Ukrainian government officials against Mr. Trump's campaign manager, Paul Manafort, to pressure him into cooperating against Mr. Trump. When you grope through the miasma of Slavic names and follow the daisy chain of related people and entities, it appears that Ukrainian officials who backed the Clinton campaign provided information that generated the investigation of Mr. Manafort. Acts that one Ukrainian court has said violated Ukrainian law and, quote, led to interference in the electoral process of the United States in 2016 and harmed the Ukraine as a state. So they obviously have a more functioning democracy or rule of law than we do. Well, look, it says here, they're actually stating that officials who sided with the Clinton campaign in 2016, that gave the FBI, and by the way, the DNC reached out to them also, information led to interference in the electoral process of the United States in 2016. The country of the Ukraine came to this conclusion. Yet Democrats have continually stated, well, if you find out any dirt on us, that's election interference. But we can find out dirt on you, that's not election interference. And Clinton is running again. And I don't care about the dates if she misses a day. They rigged a primary in 2016. I think they broke a couple of rules. I think that there was a DNC fraud lawsuit that said not only did they break rules that were written by them, which is basically like, you might as well write rules for a board game that you've created one night, and that'll be more relevant than the rules for the Democratic National Committee. They actually cheated a candidate, Bernie Sanders, which is what all of this is about. Well, most of it. I don't think they're worried about the Clinton campaign, considering that, well, I don't know, two people run the whole Democratic Party. That's right. It's an extension of me. You've been talking about my extension since the 90s. People are like, well, she might miss the deadline to file. It's like, no. Don't worry about it. That's not the way the Clintons operate. It's all good. The filing date, they don't really care. They run the whole thing. They'll say that she did it she applied without anyone knowing, and it was above board, and there was this bylaw that says you don't have to inform people when you apply. And then the nation, and then Mother Jones will be like, this is totally fine. She applied the way that it's in the bylaw that you can apply without everyone knowing, and whatever, they'll make up something. It's not. There are no rules. Clinton goes up to bat. It's 20 strikes and you're out. They don't have a political machine. They have a political machine. They don't have a political party. So anyway, whether Mr. Trump's conversation with Mr. Zelensky constitutes high crimes or misdemeanors depends, at least in part, on what he was getting at when he raised the subject of a favor. He asked not about Biden, but rather about CrowdStrike, a company hired by the Democratic National Committee to conduct a forensic examination of the DNC server. This is the most overt conflict of interest ever. You have a situation where a political party is hired by a third-party tech firm is hired by a political party, and we're supposed to believe this is just fine? There's no conflict of interest? Would they allow the Republican National Committee to hire a third-party tech firm? Why would anyone trust CrowdStrike if they were hired by Democrats? That makes no sense at all. The FBI took its word instead of conducting its own examination for the conclusion that the Russians hacked the DNC. There you go. There you go. That's one of the most important parts in this whole thing. There you go. The FBI took its word. Why did the FBI take its word? Because James Comey was all in on Clinton. James Comey covered up Clinton's crimes, and he was all in. He was just all in. Now, when you say, well, how could this happen? How could this happen? Well, it happened because there are people. There's no journalism. There's no journalism in the United States of America. It is now advocacy. Everyone is a columnist. Very few are reporters. Very few. And that's fine. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I always state my viewpoint, so I'm honest. It's not like, it's not like you're going to hear from me like, well, I'm just being above, completely neutral here. And no, I am definitely partisan. Definitely. And guess what? Just because you're partisan doesn't mean you're not right. Just because you're picking a side when describing or when giving analysis doesn't mean you're not right. In fact, in this case, I am right. They found nothing. Clinton did commit crimes. It's all documented. The problem is the mainstream, whether it's CNN, MSNBC, The Washington Post, the New York Times, how many people walk into work with a Trump hat on? How many people walk into work with a MAGA hat? You're fired that day if you do that. If you go into work at the New York Times and say, I've had a change of heart, I'm voting for Trump, you will not have a job. You will not have a job at the end of the month or the end of the year for sure. Because they will say, what is wrong with you? You know what? I never liked this guy to begin with. Oh my God, let's look at his past tweets. And there you go. There you go. It's a really... Trump is defeating all of these people, and they have every conceivable advantage over President Trump. Every conceivable advantage. Hollywood, media, Washington, D.C., the FBI. You think Christopher Wray's bending over backwards for Trump? Not really. Not at all. Neither the House, in framing charges, nor the Senate, in considering them, will be prevented from subjecting excerpts of the conversation to more analysis than they will stand. Nor does anything stop lawmakers from considering the word of an anonymous whistleblower that consists entirely of secondhand reports and conjecture. Exactly. Not subject to easy refutation. Exactly. Save for occasional whoppers like the suggestion that replacement of Zelensky conversation on a closed system not vulnerable to penetration was somehow unlawful or evidence of a guilty conscience. So they are just going completely and utterly bonkers because Trump rightfully put the conversation on a secure, top-secret server, government server. This way they can't manipulate more of whatever they consider evidence. It's a conversation. Like, this is so ridiculous that President Obama on a hot mic stated to Dmitry Medvedev, leading Russia at the time, he said, well, once I win, I'll have more leeway to talk about major political issues, major geopolitical issues. He made that pledge or promise. People were looking at it as like a promise. But anyway, nobody cared then. But anyway, the House and the Senate, by design of the founders, are unconstrained by any considerations save political ones, but they labor and occasionally preen in the limelight. Mr. Durham works, but as they labor, and preen in the limelight, Mr. Durham works quietly to determine whether highly specific criminal laws were violated, and if so, by whom. He is an experienced and principled prosecutor who has earned the confidence of attorneys general of both parties, including me. Stay tuned. John Durham is not only looking at FISA violations, he's not only looking at every other issue, the 18 U.S. Code 371 issue. He's also looking at Democrats and the Ukraine. James Comey, McCabe, Clapper. We're waiting for the IG report. That's going to expedite Andrew McCabe's indictment. He'll get indicted. Hillary Clinton is going to run again. It's going to be a repeat of 2016. There's an article out. Joe Biden is not spending any money online. What presidential candidate do you know? There's zero chance Warren becomes nominee. They don't. The AFL-CIO is against Warren. And Bernie supporters don't like Warren. Warren didn't even back Bernie Sanders in 2016, and it wouldn't have been a big issue. Like, had she backed Bernie Sanders, she would have simply been true to her alleged value system. That was the OJ song, Backstabbers. They're smiling in your face all the time. They want to take your place. That's Warren. Are you talking about backstabbers? My God. You know, that's one of the many things that kind of opened my eyes to the left. And like, how do you run on a platform that says you're going to fight the 1% and Wall Street and everything, and yet you refuse to back Bernie Sanders when he needed you? And then Bernie, of course, has a spine of jello, and then he doesn't really, he foments the same Russia myth that said Russia informed the country that he was cheated. But look, before that, there was a glimmer of hope that Bernie Sanders was actually who he claimed to be. And it's like Joe Biden, ads are disappearing, not a good sign. Joe Biden's digital ads are disappearing. Not a good sign, strategists say. Well, do you have to be a strategist to find? My God, the strategists are all over. They're so intuitive with these things. You mean not having any advertising might be bad for the campaign? These people are really ahead of the curve. I mean, this is hilarious. Well, first of all, why would you, if you're Biden, why on earth would you want to be online? There's like a million memes about you, but it's not a viable campaign. This is not a viable campaign. And it's a joke. And it's just a theatrical performance along with Warren. They don't have the ability to even raise money. They don't have the ability to raise money. They don't have the ability to raise $1.2 billion or $2 billion. Forget about $2 billion that Trump's going to raise. They don't even have the ability to raise the money that they lost with in 2016. The money that they lost with. Okay? They lost with $1.2 billion. So, give me your thoughts below. It's like, check out H.A. Goodman's other channel. I have an upload today. The last one was really informative and important. Definitely check that one out. But I check out H.A. Goodman's other channel right now. I will be doing several live streams today. Thank you.